Hey, what's up, people? It's John and Dan.
What's up? What's up?
Today, we're just going to talk about some ghost stories, some factual ghost stories. So, I can start this off if you want,
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
then we'll go into yours. So, I was about 7 years old. We lived in Virginia at the time, and we lived possibly on a battleground, one of the Civil War battlegrounds, and two people had died in our house. So I'm 7 years old, and I'm getting ready for school. So I'm in the bathroom. My mom's in the kitchen. Basically, we have the bathroom, this hall, and then it leads right into the kitchen, and it like kind of opens up. So I'm in the bathroom, brushing my teeth. I spit the water out and shit, and something like, I don't remember feeling anything, but something like pulled me backwards and just shoved me really hard forward, and I like catch my hands on the sink, and I'm like not tall enough to even really, make my face to the faucet, but right there on the hard I don't know, part of the sink faucet shit.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
counter.
I just remember looking at it, and then I'm just like, uh. I walk out of the bathroom, and my mom's like, "Why the hell's your face all so white? What's wrong with you?" And I just remember telling her, and then like we went to the doctor, all kinds of shit. I don't even think I went to school that day, so that was a plus. But yeah, it was crazy.
Shit, I probably would have went to school. Get out
I
of
was
the house.
terrified. See, the thing is after it happened, I was absolutely terrified to be in any room by myself, especially with the lights off. Even though this happened during the day with the lights on, but
Mm-hmm.
no room by myself, bro. Not
I know that.
happening.
I know
I'll
that.
take a shit with the door open. Ask my mom. It was not happening. No. Until I was probably like, I don't know, 11 years old. I was terrified for a long time from that. And then there
Yeah,
was more
things
stuff
like
that
that. Things
happened in
like
that
that stick
house,
with
but
you. Things like that tend to stick with you for a really long time. You know.
that's, I mean, there was more stuff that happened in that house, but I'm not even going to touch on that. I'm just going to touch like, the more scarier thing that happened. Even though I was physically grabbed in that and shoved, that was probably the second thing. I was probably 10 or 11, and we were actually in a new house. So I'm sleeping, and it's around Christmas. Um, my older brother, we used to sleep in the same room, stuff, but he wasn't there for whatever reason. So I'm upstairs all alone, and I'm trying to go to sleep. I can't go to sleep. About 11 years old, and I like finally fall asleep, but I wake up. I don't know what time it is. Maybe 1 in the morning, maybe two. But I remember looking at the foot of my bed, and it looked like my mom was at the foot of my bed, like it just did. But I knew there was a towel
Hey,
on
mom.
this towel rack, and the way this room worked, we had an actual bathtub in this room, and then it was like the towel rack here.
Mm.
So at the foot of my bed, there's a towel hanging up on the rack, and it looks like my mom. And I'm like closing my eyes and opening them. I'm like, there's nothing there. And I keep doing this, and I do it again, and it's gone. It's a towel. But standing in front of my doorway is this something that looks like my little brother, my youngest brother. It looks like Don, my youngest brother. And I'm like looking at it, but I know it's not him. I just know. And it's like smiling ish kind of thing. And I'm just like looking, and I'm like, Don, get out of my room. And I know it's not him. I just said it anyways. And it's just looking at me. And I'm like, well, maybe if I close my eyes and open them. So I like close them and open them. It's still there. And it starts coming forward, like towards me. And I remember it gets bigger. It starts like growing. And it looked like Ryan. It looked like my oldest brother. And then
Rick
it like,
fucking Morphin.
yes.
It's a
And it's just like
shapeshifter lizard alien. I
growing.
knew it. It's the reptiles.
Dude, it was one of the scariest things of my life. Like, it just keeps growing, and it gets closer, and then it looks like my grandpa,
Man, that's like some
who's passed.
Pennywise shit. We all float down here.
So when it looks like my grandpa, I remember like looking at it, and it's like standing over me, and I'm laying down, and like the only thing that I remember really about the face is I don't remember seeing eyes. I remember seeing
What?
like darkness, and it like starts reaching its hand towards me, and I grabbed my covers and just turned, and I just stayed like that. I was frozen. I couldn't yell. I mean, I could have, but I was so scared that I just like stayed under my blanket. It's like, well, now I'm terrified again, guys.
Now
Back to shitting with the door open.
that ghost just had to come let you know one more time. Just like, hey, just want to make sure you know you need to shit with the door open.
If anyone knows what that would be, feel free to try to explain it to me. I don't fucking know what that was. Ghost, demon, it was something. That shit was
You
scary
were
as
on
fuck.
drugs at 11.
That shit was terrifying.
You're smoking the wacky weed.
That's
So
the only two
that's the
I
most
really
you wanna
wanted to
assume.
touch.
Were you on Ritalin? Was that what it
Nope.
was? Were you having an adverse reaction to Ritalin?
Nope.
For any
Dude.
reason, you take malaria pills.
When I was the sync one, when I was in Virginia, the doctors were like, "Were you having muscle spasms?" I was like, I was shoved really hard.
And that's like a really hard muscle spasm, like into.
Yeah, my muscle spasm tried to kill me. Tried to face plant me on the sink.
Yeah, I think that's technically that you dealt with what it sounds like more of what I dealt with at the house that we lived in, which is I think more of like a poltergeist. I don't even think it's really classified. Well, I think there was more than one ghost spirit, whatever the hell you want to call it, at the place that we lived in. But when we moved from Canada when I was 9 years old, we lived there for a year on a Navy base in Newfoundland, and we moved to my grandparents' house in Colbert, Oklahoma. I mean, this place is literally like the asshole of the country. There is nothing there. You know what I mean? Like we lived in a town where there was like one shitty Food King supermarket, and like that was it. I mean, there was like nothing there. There was like a mechanic, and then we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and there was two bars, like shitty, like I'm talking like these like were some bars, dude, that you could probably write some stories on. People got knife fights out in front of these things. It was the Mohawk and Arnold's. And it was hilarious that we had these two bars and shit next, right down the street from us and stuff like that. But I mean, this place was pretty wild town, especially back when I lived there. And this would have been early '90s, right? So we move into this town. My mom's like divorcing my stepdad, who's in the Navy. We basically left him in the middle of the night. Long story. It's a whole different story. But my mom didn't want to live with my grandparents. We lived with them for a little bit, but she wanted her own house. So she wanted to rent a place, right? Well, we're talking Culver, Oklahoma again. I mean, this place sucks. I mean, there is nothing there.
Right.
So there's not exactly a ton of, houses to rent. There's no apartments. You know what I mean? There's nothing like that there. Condo. You know what I mean? This is old school, old west style like place. You know what I mean? Type at the time. So, anyways, there is a house for rent, and I remember at the time it was like a couple $100 a month. Man, it was like super cheap, right? Well, this house is a 2-story house, right? 2 stories, and I think it was like 4 or 5 bedrooms. There was like 4 baths or something like that. It had a huge wraparound porch that went around like the whole house almost. And it was a beautiful, like old Victorian style house. It looked like some shit out of Amityville. If you've ever seen that Amityville fucking movie or any of those movies, that's what it looked like when you were like looking up at it from the street. You know what I mean? When you get to the house. So we moved into it as like a blessing, right? Cheap house. My mom's like divorcing my stepdad and shit, and doesn't have much money, and trying to make ends meet and stuff like that, on her own and stuff, yada yada. And so like the house was like a blessing. So we move into this big ass house, man. There's tons of room, dude. There's a big backyard, big front yard. I'm like exploring this house naturally. I was going into fifth grade. I had just graduated fourth. Yeah, I was going into fifth grade. So whatever age I was at that time. So I'm going into fifth grade, and naturally, young boy, I'm exploring the hell out of this big ass house, right? And the house was really interesting how it was designed, right? There was like all kinds of little like, uh, it, I'm not gonna say like optical illusions, but like things that would like kind of fool you a little bit, right? Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, like when you were in the living room, where we had our TV up, next to it was like a closet door, right? It looked like a mini closet, right? Like you would
Right.
something you would see like for like where you put your towels or something, right? Where it's like a smaller type door.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a full door. Well, you open it and it was a fucking staircase, a winding staircase that takes you up to the top
Like
floor.
some sinister shit.
So you're like, open this creaky ass fucking door up, and you look up, and it's like, staircase that goes up and shit, right? And so it was real fascinating, and you get upstairs and stuff like that, and there was all kinds of shit about upstairs, where I think the source of all the fucking craziness was. Um, but anyways, long story short, man, like we had so many different encounters, and I can bring friends on here that we can, find a way to get them on the call. It'll probably have to be through a damn phone or something like that. But some of the guys I grew up with and stuff out there will
Mm-hmm.
literally tell you the same stories because they were with me, like staying the night with me or whatever when we were kids. We're playing in the house, and then this shit happened. And we at one point before we moved out of the house, we only lasted 1 year,
That's how
and
long we stayed in
it
Virginia.
was done. My mom was losing her mind. She was like on like antidepressant drugs and stuff like that because there was like crazy shit happened to her, like even more bizarre shit. You know what I mean? Like in the night, like more physical type shit happening to her in the house and stuff. And we ended up taking off and you know what I mean, moving into a different house and stuff eventually. Within that first year, but no babysitters would come and watch my little brother. Me and my little brother, like no one in the town would come up there. My friends at the end would not come up to the house for any reason. They would stay literally at the street on their bicycles, like nah, dog, come down to
What
our house.
happened?
So one of the first things that happened, that kind of kicked everything off is this is probably the first month we were there. I used to play baseball, basketball, organized and stuff in the town. They didn't have football, unfortunately, because it was too poor. But they had baseball and basketball. So I come home one day from playing baseball, and my mom's not at the house, and I was kind of a little skittish. I used to watch scary movies and shit when I was a kid. Probably shouldn't have. Like 5 years old,
Same.
watching Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what I mean? It was like my
Mm-hmm.
favorite movie series. Jason, all the crazy
Exorcist, all that cool stuff.
Hellraiser, bro, like all the crazy stuff, right? So I was a little skittish just from the movies, like to go inside the house by myself. So I'm like, just kind of look at this big crazy Amityville house and throw my baseball up and catching it. You used to do that when you're a kid. You just throw it really high in the air and then catch the ball. Well, there was like these two windows up, like on the top floor that were on that top floor that I was telling you about. Well, these curtains, one of them opens like this, and it's this old like Indian looking woman that's like looking down at me, right?
Oh shit.
And I'm like, the ball drops. I don't know how it didn't hit me. You know what I mean? I'm just like staring, and then the thing like closes the blinds up, and I'm just like, yeah, no. Dropped my baseball glove, got on my bike, and then I took off down to my friend's house, right? So my mom comes down there, you know what I mean, like looking for me, like, where the hell are you? Blah blah. And I'm like, I'm not leaving. I'm staying at LV's house. Like, I'm not coming home. That's my mom. What happened? Like, ended up, getting over it, going back to the house. So then weird shit starts happening with my cat, right? So for like the next week, like I'm waking up in the middle of the night, and I had this cat, Bandit, that had basically been with me from Virginia Beach. We had moved from Virginia Beach to Norfolk, Virginia to Newfoundland, and then now we're in Culver. And this was like my first pet. Her name was Bandit. Um, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and Bandit would be at the foot of my bed, like hissing and going bananas at something in my doorway, bro. Like just going crazy, right? Like loud as hell, right? You ever heard a cat do that? It's like you're not sleeping through it,
Right.
and like hissing and shit, and you just get this feeling. You're just like, what the fuck is going on? My cat's freaking out and shit. So weird stuff like that would happen, and then when it started to like get really kind of like epic and really escalating is like one night my buddy Marty was staying the night with me, right? My mom was out. My mom was like dating at the time. This is probably like 4 or 5 months in. My buddy Marty staying the night. We had a babysitter. And my little brother, who's probably like 2 years old or something at the time, I can't remember, he was like really young. He's asleep. Babysitter fell asleep. Probably midnight, somewhere around in there or something like that, if I remember correctly. And me and Marty are still awake, and we're watching Cinemax, but we're waiting for the Skinemax stuff to come on, like the Ski Patrol. If you remember, like all those funny movies and stuff that has like the shows like the tits and stuff like that when you're a kid. And all of a sudden, like we're just laying on the carpet next to each other with pillows and stuff, and just watching, and the remote controls in between us, right? Now, this is the age where you just had a TV. We didn't have a fucking DVR. We didn't have like all these other remotes. There was one fucking remote for the TV, and it was basic cable. Like if you had HBO, it's like whatever. You know what I mean? There wasn't a box or anything, right? So the TV turns off, turns back on. I look at Marty. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he's like, dude, I'm not doing that. And then it turns off, turns back on. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And he's like, look, the remote's right there, bro. And he's literally pointing at it, and it turns back on. It turns off, turns back on. Volume goes all the way up, goes back down, right? Starts changing channels, right? I'm like, I think we screamed or something. I can't really remember. I just remember being so like wigged out at the time. The babysitter comes in. She's like, what the hell are y'all doing? We're like, we don't fucking know. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're trying to explain to her, and I can only imagine what she was like. She was like a 17-year-old kid, and there's these two, you know what I mean? Like what 9 or 10-year-old kids or whatever we were, like screaming top of her lungs, TV's going crazy. Well, the fucking shower turns on behind her in the bathroom.
Oh shit.
And the fucking sink turns on. Something's like running upstairs and shit. I mean, it was crazy. My brother wakes up, he's crying. Dude, I mean, think my mom came home. It was like I think it was like 1 or 1 something in the morning. Babysitter was like, "Peace out. Like I'm never coming back. Good luck. Give me my money."
That's
like
some Annabelle shit.
You know what I'm saying? Like done, right? And shit just happened like this, like consecutive. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. To the point to where it was like too much. Dude, my Teddy Ruxpin came alive one night and started talking in the middle of the night, not saying shit. There was no tape in him. There was no fucking batteries in him. And his fucking bottom jaw fell off and shit, dude. I mean, like, this house was out of control.
Wait, you had Ted?
Yeah, I had a Teddy Ruxpin. And I didn't have a Teddy Ruxpin for very long after that, though.
It was not your Thunder Buddy.
No, he was not. Not at that time. He betrayed me. He went to the wrong team. But no, I mean, this house, dude, and like later on we found out my mom had found a book at the local library or whatever in Culver or whatever, that they have like a library and stuff like that there, and for stuff from the town and old stuff, and there was basically a book about the house, about how many people had lived there, because it was like a plantation home or something like that, and it had been there for I don't know, 100 years or something like that at some point. But there have been like all these different Indian families that had lived in there and stuff, and people had gotten murdered in there and persecuted, this and that. And the other thing I can tell you is my mom had an Indian friend that came over, and she was like full blood Cherokee or something like that. And she came over and was like actually staying there at the house at one point because she needed a place to stay. And she had a daughter who was like 18 or 19 at the time that was staying there too with us. They lasted like 4 days, right? She had a similar experience to you, where we're all sitting in the living room, right? And I was like doing something. My mom's talking to her, and she's sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden goes flying across the room, hits her head into the back of the microwave, right?
Jesus.
And like immediately she knows like something's wrong. It's like evil spirit or something like that, and she just starts chanting Indian shit. Gets the damn, not the salt shaker, the whole damn mortem like can of salt that you like pour the thing out, and is literally like throwing salt around the house, like walking around in the doorways, like chanting shit. And she said that it was like upstairs and shit like that, like the source of like all the shit going on in the house is upstairs. There was a cold spot in the house upstairs.
I bet that made you not want to stay there.
You go into this spot upstairs, right? There's no central AC, okay, in the house. None.
And so it's a cold spot.
There's a cold spot. Like you literally stand in it, and it's super fucking cold. Get out of there. It's not cold. Just in that one spot.
Jesus, that's
Like
weird.
it's a crazy house. Like the house is still there, right? I was down there a couple years ago.
Oh, you revisit it?
Oh, I don't go on inside, but I'll drive by it.
You won't go back in?
Hell no, I'm not going
I
back
would
in
go
the house.
in my old one, in the
Uh-uh.
Virginia
No,
one.
no, I would not. Because one, the people who live there now, right? They were the ones who owned the house when we
Mm-hmm.
were renting it from them. They ended up something happened at their house. They ended up moving into it when we left,
Mm-hmm.
right? They've lost like all their grandkids, and then like some other shit. They don't like leave the house now. Like it's fucking weird, eerie shit. That's like not, I don't think the grandkids died. I think they died in car accidents or different other things happen or whatever. But I'm just telling you,
Nothing to do with it. Right.
good,
Yeah.
good. We're gonna keep that in the past. That house sucked. Officially, that shit scared the hell out of me, bro. Like all my friends, my mom was having shit like waking up and like shit whispered to her. She said like in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And unfortunately, my mom's not alive anymore. But like if she was, like she could tell you the stories too. The shit that was happening to her, it was like intense stuff. Getting like woken up, choked in the middle of the night. It's nothing there. You know what I'm saying? Like doors locking shouldn't be locked. You know what I mean? Like and it was like a progression thing too as well. It wasn't like, you know, right when you move in, next first night, like there's dolls talking to you and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like a progression thing. And you know, obviously, I mean, obviously, I was a kid, so possibly maybe I blew things out of proportion, or there is explanations for all this shit, you know, logical stuff or whatever. But at the time, man, it didn't feel like there was too many damn logical explanations. You know what I'm saying? And there was too
Mm-hmm.
many people that didn't want anything to do with the house. And once we found that book and realized how many people like died inside the house, people like hung out in the front yard and shit, like yeah, we got to go. I'm pretty sure that was the catalyst for my mom finally being like, we got to get out of this house like immediately. This place is this place is super bad. You know?
See, the house, when we were in Virginia, we only stayed that year from when I was 7. But my mom, my dad, Ryan, um, I don't know if my 2 younger brothers would even remember much of that house, but we've all experienced something in it. I got the worst of it, but we've all experienced them. Like we had a funny story that I consider funny, but it did happen. We were all just like sitting at the kitchen table. It was me, my brother. I think my uncle might have been there, but my mom was cooking like I think it might have been like Easter dinner stuff or something. And you hear like two like ticks. It's like tink tink, and we don't think nothing of it. So we're sitting at the table. My mom comes back in. She was like, "Which one of you got in the candy?" I'm like, what? She was like, "Who put this in the pan?" And like, there's like two like Easter candies in the pan, and none of us did that shit, but it was in there. Like, they would hear like voices. My parents would hear voices talking in the middle of the night. They would think we were up, so they would get up out of the bed and go look around. We're knocked out. Like, no one's in the house. Hear voices from like the attic because we had. I don't remember the whole house layout, but I remember there's stairs and it kind of wraps around, and then there's like room, and a pull down attic thing that comes down.
Mm-hmm.
But we would hear like stuff in there, and we have a bunch of pictures that we took from in the house where there's just nothing but white in the middle of it, like something's there. I mean, it could have just been not fully exposed or whatever you call that on the camera, but just weird ass shit. A lot of it. And
Yeah.
I've had experiences for most of my life as a kid, not most of my adult life, but like as a kid, even when we moved, that's when the other shit still happened. Like I don't know if something followed me or if that house was haunted and something haunted me here because no one else experienced anything else after we moved. But like for a while, I would even sleep on the couch because I was afraid to be upstairs by myself when I was like 11. But I remember laying one night and I had my hands behind the couch and I felt something like grab my hand and I'm just like, and I wouldn't even look anymore. I would literally just pull the blanket up and I wouldn't move. That was just that. Like, I was terrified for a lot of my life as a kid, like from that shit.
Yeah, that shit messed me up, man. Like it messed me up for years. Like I was like, just it more. It didn't like give me any kind of like irrational fears or any kind of shit like out in public or doing things alone or whatever. It was more in the houses. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
um, you know, but at the same time too, I think I also kind of like got a little bit desensitized to a certain level too as well. I think because it at a certain point, man, you're just like, holy shit, this is so crazy, bro. Like my house is nuts. I mean, I would stay
Right.
down to my buddy, if I could get Marty or LV or Larry, they all lived together. They were like, Marty and LV are brothers, and then Larry was like a step brother basically because his dad was with their mom or whatever, and they had a house with like there was like 13 kids in this one house, man. It was bananas. I could do a whole show just on that house, the house they lived in. It wasn't haunted at all, but not like mine. But I stayed down there at their place for like a week straight. You know what I mean? And I'm a kid, like in fifth grade, not coming home,
It's like, fuck
staying
this.
staying at a friend's house, and just like fighting with his mom about coming home because I don't want to go in the house. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, my grandmother had shit happen to her inside the house and stuff like that too as well. Things coming up like talking to her or like whispering to her, like voices and stuff like that around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Like primarily though, for the most part, it was things turning on, turning off. You know what I'm saying? Like TVs or the toaster would get pushed down. You know what I'm saying? With no toast in it, and all of a sudden you hear it like. You know what I mean? You hear it flick up. You know what I mean? But there's no. You're like, was that the toaster? And you look over and it's hot as fuck, and there's no toast. Nobody was using it. You
Yeah, I
know.
don't think anything like that happened to me, but I wouldn't even remember. I don't remember a lot of that house. I just remember like the couple instances that are
I could
super terrifying.
almost draw this house from memory for the most
When I
part.
think like back on it, I'll start remembering certain rooms, but I remember the outside really well. But and I've seen a picture of the house again. We still had a picture somewhere. I don't know where it's at. And I've also found it online. I'd be interested just to go back to the house that I'm at just to see if anybody else experienced anything. Cuz like I really want to know if it was me as a kid or if that house was fucking haunted and something followed me or I don't know, like
Mhm.
I'd be interested to go back. I would go back. I mean, I do ghost hunts and shit now,
Yeah,
so
now you do it.
I
So
look for it now, but then I didn't. That shit's terrifying then.
I would probably go look for ghosts at some place I've never been, but I don't think I would ever go back to that same house. I don't know why, but that maybe just I don't know. Maybe like a fear to conquer or something like that. But those people that live there, man, are weird as hell. So I wouldn't even go knock on the damn door. You know, like I didn't like the people back when those people when we owned or my mom was renting the place. They were real nosy and shit, but nothing to do with ghosts or anything like that. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, I mean that house was definitely 100%. I don't give a shit what anybody says. There was some fucking crazy going on there. You know what I mean? There was too many people involved, too many people with experiences. People that come there and weren't even in there for like fucking 24 hours, and we're like, dude, what's wrong with your house? Like, who's upstairs? It's like, what are you talking about? Nobody's upstairs. Dude, somebody's walking around upstairs. And it's like, no, nobody's here.
I hear it
Oh,
too.
yeah. Uh, the wind? Like,
I hope.
yeah, it was. So yeah, I 100% believe in that kind of stuff. Thank God there was no possession or anything crazy like that. I mean, it wasn't like I'm not gonna say it wasn't violent, but it wasn't. We didn't have any like physical problems or anything like that. But I mean, I'm not saying they weren't trying. from what my mom was saying, it was, what I witnessed with the one Indian chick, getting thrown.
Right.
Um,
Didn't like her.
she said it was because of the type of Indian that she was. She was, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong. I mean, this is a long time ago. I mean, I'm 38 now, and I was like 8 or 9 at the time. But if I remember correctly, I remember it had something to do with either that or the fact that she was an Indian in the first place. What it was either the type or the fact that she was an Indian, because it was either have to do with the people that were Indian that lived there, or maybe I think there was people that lived there that didn't like Indians that took the house from the people that didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a weird Amityville type backstory there. I'd like to try to go back and find that book. Like, I wonder if
Oh, the one in the house.
yeah, I mean, my grandmother was just too sick when I called her. There was just no way. But my brother might be able to find it if I can get a hold of him. He might be able to go look for it. But
Just to see what it
I don't.
is.
Yeah, my mom's not alive anymore. I thought my mom had actually had the book at one point, like actually owned it at one point, but I can't. I can't remember. But I remember it used to be. I mean, my mom had the thing. I've looked at it and stuff, and I vividly remember some of the old pictures that were like black and white of like Indians, like, you know what I mean, like, taking pictures like at the house and stuff, with those crazy hats and shit. And you're just like, whoa. Yeah. So yeah.
So that's pretty much wraps this one up. If you guys have any insight on what any of this could have been, I mean, poltergeist, whatnot, feel free to share.
Don't forget your own experiences.
Yeah, right below. Just leave them in the comment. Your own experiences. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Later on.
Peace.